Humanity has had a long history of board games, dating back to ancient Egypt, but since the 19th century, a new type of game has captivated people, the war game. Using pieces that represent a real military unit, such as cavalry or infantry, two or more players act as a general for their army, battling until a victory is decided. It was only a matter of time before one of these games became one of the biggest media franchises of all time. In this documentary, I'll be looking at Warhammer, Games Workshop's premier wargame franchises, and possibly one of the biggest tabletop games the world has ever seen. Warhammer is a general term given to a couple of different but very similar games, all by Games Workshop, a UK-based miniature company. When most people say Warhammer, they are mostly referring to Warhammer 40k or Warhammer Age of Sigmar, but Warhammer Fantasy Battles also comes up occasionally. The game is played with small miniatures of varying designs, but each represents a unit with its own rules and abilities. The game is mostly played with these models, a set of 6-sided dice, and a tape measure. Players move their models, then attack with them, rolling dice to decide if the attacks hit and how much damage they deal. That is the basis of how the game is played, but the interesting part comes with the strategy, as no two matches are the same. Each unit belongs to a faction, with units within that faction having similar abilities, aesthetic, and design to each other. A major part of the hobby is assembling and painting these models. Some don't even play the game, only buying the models to paint them to fantastic degrees. But why? Why do people love this game and hobby so much? While many media franchises have just as dedicated fans, Warhammer seems to keep people interested for much longer. After all, watching a movie or playing a video game is something everyone can do. Sitting down for hours to paint some small plastic models isn't something everyone is going to be into. So why is Warhammer the size it is? Over the course of 40 years, Warhammer has grown from an obscure tabletop game to what it is today. But why wasn't it popular back then? Things like Star Wars have always been popular, so why not Warhammer? Well, money may have something to do with it. The hobby isn't cheap, with individual models going for upwards of £90. The people who had their first experience with it when they were younger now have a disposable income. For those people, Warhammer may give them a sense of nostalgia that other things may not be able to give. How do you even find out about Warhammer? Well, with its rising popularity, it's crossed over to the mainstream media, with a lot of books and video games being made about the lore of the series. Games Workshop established a division in 1997 called Black Library, dedicated to publishing novels and audiobooks set in the Warhammer universes. Even for those that aren't familiar with the tabletop game, the books are some of the best sci-fi and fantasy books around, and offer hours of entertainment on their own. There are nearly 1,000 books written about Warhammer, from war stories to murder mysteries, dramas, and even children's novels, all of which add depth to the setting. There are multiple video games based around Warhammer, most being strategy games attracting people who like the genre into a tabletop game, something they will also most likely like. Another type of game you often see are 4-player co-op games where you fight a horde of enemies. These games show people the craziness of the world and leave them asking for more, where the tabletop game comes in. Warhammer also has a unique visual identity, creating the grimdark aesthetic it has become synonymous with. While it's obvious with a lot of its influences, Frank Herbert's Dune for example, the style is a melting pot of cultural touchstones with influence from Tolkien, Alien, Starship Troopers, Lovecraft, Mad Max, creature features from the 60s to 80s, Norse mythology, and Japanese mecha. No matter what you like, Warhammer likely has something that appeals to you. Warhammer's unparalleled depth and diversity, coupled with its visual style and setting, make it appealing to many different types of people. The physical outlet for creativity Warhammer has is amazing compared to other similar franchises. Since the physical game requires you to build and paint your models, it leaves a lot up to you as to how you want to do that and what colours or techniques you use. Every person's models will look entirely different from each other, even if they bought the same miniature. This isn't something you really get from other forms of media. You don't have anything physical to show for your achievements in a video game, for example. Painting is also not something you're expected to be good at immediately. Whilst there are resources both online and offline to help, even with them you won't be amazing on your first try. The biggest part of this that keeps people coming back is the growth, as you have something physical you can compare to your recent work and see how much you've improved. In conclusion, if you've ever left the cinema or turned off your TV screen wishing you could create your own Death Star, Stormtroopers, or larger-than-life heroes, then this is for you. Warhammer is a game that lets you make adventures and epic battles on the tabletop. Since 2007, Warhammer's gotten increasingly popular, and it shows no signs of slowing down.